Have you ever stopped to think about why, in an era where we have more access to information, more opportunities, and more resources than any previous generation, rates of anxiety and depression are skyrocketing? Why, even with all the advances in medicine, technology, and human knowledge, do we feel more lost and unhappy than ever? The answer may lie in something you've never considered: the invisible and constant pressure you put on yourself to always be happy. Imagine waking up every morning with the feeling that you need to conquer the world, smile at everyone, post the perfect photo on Instagram, and still feel an inexplicable emptiness in your chest. This is the reality for millions of people living under the tyranny of mandatory happiness. We have been conditioned to believe that being sad, anxious, or discouraged is a sign of weakness, that something is wrong with us, that we are not grateful or positive enough. Modern society has created a dangerous narrative that happiness is a permanent state we must achieve and maintain. Look around you. On social media, everyone seems to be living their best lives. In commercials, families are always smiling and harmonious. In movies, even in the toughest moments, there is always a happy ending. But here's the problem: this is not the reality of the human experience. And when our real life doesn't match this fantasy, we assume the problem lies within us. Have you ever felt guilty for being sad? Have you hidden your tears because you didn't want people to think you're not okay? Have you ever faked a smile when all you wanted was to disappear? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are experiencing the toxic effects of the pressure to be constantly happy. What psychology has discovered in recent decades is revolutionary and at the same time disturbing. Studies show that people who feel pressured to always be happy report higher levels of depressive symptoms. It's as if the very pursuit of happiness is making us unhappier. This happens because when we resist our natural emotions, when we try to suppress sadness, anger, or frustration, they don't disappear, they intensify. Think about the last time you felt genuinely sad. Not that performative sadness you can share on social media with an inspiring quote, but that deep, real sadness that leaves you vulnerable. What was your first reaction? Probably to try to get rid of it as quickly as possible. Maybe you distracted yourself with your phone, work, shopping, or anything that could take you out of that state. But what if I told you that this sadness, this vulnerability, this experience you try so hard to avoid is exactly what connects you to your humanity? Negative emotions are not bugs in the human system, they are features. Sadness connects us with our empathy and allows us to process important losses. Anger signals when our boundaries are being violated. Anxiety prepares us to face future challenges. Fear protects us from real dangers. When we try to eliminate these emotions from our experience, we are not becoming happier. We are becoming more disconnected from ourselves. But the pressure to be constantly happy goes beyond individual emotions. It is shaping the way we live our lives. How many important decisions have you made based not on what you truly wanted, but on what you thought should make you happy? How many times have you chosen the job you should enjoy, the relationship that should complete you, the lifestyle that should satisfy you? The happiness industry is a multi-billion-dollar market. Self-help books promise magic formulas. Coaches sell transformation programs. Meditation apps promise instant inner peace. Digital influencers monetize their self-discovery journeys. And they all have one thing in common. They sell the idea that happiness is a product you can buy, a state you can hack, a result you can guarantee if you just follow the right steps. But here's the truth no one wants to tell you. There is no formula for happiness. There is no permanent emotional state. There is no version of you that will always be satisfied, always at peace, always fulfilled. Human life is by nature an experience of ups and downs, light and shadow, joy and sadness. And trying to escape this reality is like trying to escape life itself. You've probably heard of the concept of toxic positivity. It's that attitude of forcing positivity in every situation, denying or minimizing painful experiences with phrases like, "At least you have your health," "Everything happens for a reason," or "You just need to think positive." But what you might not know is that toxic positivity is not only harmful when it comes from others, it's even more destructive when it comes from yourself. How many times have you criticized yourself for not being good enough? How many times have you compared yourself to others who seemed happier, more accomplished, more satisfied? How many times have you assumed the problem was your lack of gratitude, your lack of perspective, your lack of willpower? This constant self-criticism, this internal pressure for happiness, is creating a generation of people who feel like failures for being human. Neuroscience shows us something fascinating about how our brain processes emotions. When we try to suppress a negative emotion, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive control, has to work extra hard to maintain that suppression. It's like you're constantly using mental energy to hold a beach ball underwater. Eventually you get tired and the ball bursts to the surface with even more force. This explains why many people living under the pressure of constant happiness report episodes of emotional collapse. It's not that they are weak or unstable, it's that they have spent so much energy trying to maintain a facade of well-being that when they finally can't anymore, all the repressed emotion comes out at once. But there is something even deeper going on here. The pressure to be constantly happy is not only affecting how we deal with our emotions, it is changing our relationship with life itself. When we believe we should always be happy, we start to see any difficulty, any challenge, any moment of discomfort as evidence that something is wrong. Have you noticed how our society treats suffering? We medicate sadness, distract anxiety, avoid loneliness, deny anger. We have built an entire culture based on avoiding pain. But what if I told you that this avoidance is costing us our ability to grow, to genuinely connect with others, and to find real meaning in our lives? Suffering, as uncomfortable as it is the catalyst for human growth. It is through our most difficult experiences that we develop resilience, empathy, and wisdom. It is in confronting our vulnerability that we discover our true strength. It is in accepting our imperfection that we find our shared humanity. People who have experienced great losses often report that despite the pain, these experiences brought them clarity about what really matters. Individuals who face their deepest fears discover reserves of courage they didn't know they had. Those who have gone through periods of depression often develop a deeper understanding of themselves and others. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering or romanticize pain. It means we should stop treating them as enemies to be eliminated at any cost. It means recognizing that a full life includes the entire range of human experience, not just the peak moments. The pressure to be constantly happy is also affecting our relationships. When we are constantly focused on our own emotional well-being, we lose the ability to be truly present for others. When we are always trying to maintain our own happiness, we have less patience to deal with others' difficult emotions. Authentic relationships require that we be able to witness and sustain not only joy but also sadness, anger, fear, and frustration. When we are afraid of our own negative emotions, how can we be present for the negative emotions of those we love? When we are constantly trying to fix our own feelings, we inevitably try to fix others' feelings too. This creates superficial relationships based on the performance of well-being rather than genuine connection. We begin to relate to edited versions of each other, with carefully constructed personas that hide our true experience. And then we wonder why we feel so lonely, even when surrounded by people. The truth is that real intimacy only happens when we can be vulnerable, when we can show our imperfections, when we can share not only our successes, but also our failures. Genuine human connection is born from our shared humanity, not from our shared happiness. Now imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you stopped pressuring yourself to always be happy. Imagine waking up in the morning without the expectation that the day should be perfect. Imagine feeling sadness without judgment, anger without guilt, fear without shame. Imagine making decisions based on what really matters to you, not on what you think should make you happy. This is the difference between a conditioned mind and an awakened mind. A conditioned mind is always chasing specific emotional states, always trying to avoid discomfort, always seeking the next dose of happiness. An awakened mind recognizes that life is a complete experience, including light and shadow, joy and sadness, satisfaction and frustration. Start questioning. Awakened mind, when was the last time you allowed yourself to genuinely feel what you were feeling, without trying to change it, without trying to fix it, without trying to optimize it? When did you give yourself permission to be human, with all the complexities and contradictions that entails? The path to a more authentic and paradoxically more satisfying life does not lie in the relentless pursuit of happiness. It lies in the radical acceptance of the entire human experience. It lies in developing a healthier relationship with our emotions, treating them as valuable information rather than problems to be solved. This doesn't mean becoming passive or resigned. It means becoming more aware, more present, more connected with the reality of who you are, rather than the fantasy of who you think you should be. It means finding peace, not in the absence of difficulties but in your ability to navigate through them. When we stop wasting energy trying to control our emotional states, that energy becomes available for what really matters: creating, connecting, contributing, growing. When we stop judging our experiences as good or bad, we begin to extract wisdom from all of them. When we stop chasing happiness as a goal, we often discover that it appears naturally as a byproduct of a life lived with purpose and authenticity. Society will continue selling the illusion of constant happiness. Social media algorithms will keep showing you edited versions of other people's lives. The wellness industry will keep promising quick fixes for complex problems, but you have the power to choose a different approach. You can choose to honor your full experience. You can choose to treat your emotions as allies, not enemies. You can choose to build relationships based on authenticity, not performance. You can choose to pursue a meaningful life instead of a constantly happy one. And here's the most ironic thing: when you stop chasing happiness, when you stop pressuring yourself to always be okay, when you accept the totality of the human experience, you often discover a deeper and more lasting form of contentment. Not the superficial and fleeting happiness our culture sells, but a robust satisfaction that can coexist with any emotion. You discover that you can be sad and grateful at the same time. You can be anxious and courageous simultaneously. You can be afraid and still take important actions. You can be imperfect and still be worthy of love. You can be struggling and still be exactly where you need to be. This is the freedom that comes from stopping the fight against your own humanity. This is the peace that emerges when you stop trying to be someone you're not. This is the authenticity that develops when you stop performing well-being and start living genuinely. Your life doesn't have to be a constant quest for positive emotional states. Your life can be a journey of self-discovery, growth, and genuine connection. You don't have to be happy all the time to have a full life. You just need to be willing to feel everything life has to offer, knowing that every emotion, every experience, every moment of difficulty is an opportunity to become more human, wiser, more connected with yourself and others. But let's go even deeper into this issue, because there are layers to this illusion we need to explore. The pressure to be constantly happy didn't come out of nowhere. It is the result of decades of social, cultural, and commercial conditioning that taught us to treat our emotions as products that can be optimized, controlled, and manipulated. Think about how you were raised. How many times as a child did you hear phrases like, "Don't cry, be strong, smile, don't be sad"? How many times were your emotions invalidated with comments like, "You're being dramatic," or "That's no reason to be upset"? From a very early age, we learned that certain emotions are acceptable and others are not. We learned that being happy is good and being sad is bad. This initial programming creates an artificial division within us. We begin to identify only with the positive aspects of our experience and reject everything we consider negative. But here's the problem. When we reject parts of ourselves, when we try to be only positive, we don't become more whole, we become more fragmented. Psychological fragmentation is one of the main causes of modern suffering. When we can't integrate all parts of our experience, we create a constant internal war. One part of us is always fighting another part. One part wants to be happy, another part is sad. One part wants to be confident, another part is insecure. One part wants to be at peace, another part is anxious. This internal battle consumes an enormous amount of psychic energy. It's like having two people inside you in constant conflict, each trying to suppress the other. And in the middle of this conflict, you lose contact with who you really are. You become a spectator of your own life, always trying to mediate between these fragmented parts of yourself. The happiness industry exploits exactly this fragmentation. It sells the idea that you can eliminate the negative parts of yourself and keep only the positive ones. Books promise to teach you how to overcome sadness, conquer anxiety, defeat your fears. But have you ever stopped to think about what this war language implies? It suggests that you are at war with yourself. And here's the disturbing truth. You cannot win a war against yourself. You can temporarily suppress certain emotions, distract them, medicate them, but they always come back because they are part of you. Trying to eliminate your negative emotions is like trying to eliminate your shadow. You can position yourself so it's not visible, but it's always there. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, spoke about the concept of the psychological shadow. He said that everything we reject in ourselves doesn't disappear but goes into what he called the shadow, an unconscious part of the personality that contains all the aspects of ourselves we consider unacceptable. And the more we try to be only positive, the bigger and more powerful our shadow becomes. Have you ever met people who are always forcing positivity, who never admit to feeling bad, who always have a smile on their face but periodically explode in episodes of inexplicable anger? Or people who say they are always calm and zen but periodically have anxiety attacks? That is the shadow manifesting. Everything that was repressed eventually finds a way out. The pressure to be constantly happy is also intrinsically connected to our relationship with time. We live in a society that idolizes the future and fears the present. We are always chasing the improved version of ourselves that will exist in the future. When I get that job, then I'll be happy. When I find the right person, then I'll be complete. When I lose weight, then I'll accept myself. But that future happiness is always a mirage, because when we reach the point we thought would make us happy, we discover happiness isn't there, so we create a new goal, a new target, a new condition for our happiness. And so we spend our whole lives chasing something that is always one step ahead. Meanwhile, we completely lose touch with the present. We lose the ability to find satisfaction in what we have, who we are, what we are living now. We develop a chronic inability to be present for our own life. And ironically, it is precisely in the present that genuine satisfaction can be found. Have you ever had those rare moments when you felt completely present? Maybe watching a sunset or having a deep conversation with someone you love, or simply sitting in silence doing nothing. In those moments, you probably weren't thinking about being happy, you were just being. And in that state of pure presence, there is a quality of peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. But our culture teaches us to distrust those moments. It teaches us that we should always be doing something, always improving, always progressing. The idea of simply being present with our experience, whatever it may be, is seen as unproductive, as a waste of time. We develop a phobia of the present, a compulsive need to always be going somewhere else, literally or figuratively. This phobia of the present is fueled by our toxic relationship with discomfort. We have been conditioned to believe that any form of discomfort is a problem that needs to be solved immediately. Feeling anxious? Take a pill. Feeling bored? Grab your phone. Feeling lonely? Open social media. Feeling sad? Distract yourself with work. But discomfort is not a bug, it's a feature. It is through discomfort that we grow, that we learn, that we evolve. A life without discomfort is a life without growth. And a life without growth is a stagnant life, no matter how happy it may seem on the surface. Think about the moments in your life when you grew the most as a person. They were probably moments of challenge, difficulty, discomfort. They were moments when you were forced to step out of your comfort zone, to confront your fears, to question your beliefs. They were moments when you weren't happy in the conventional sense, but you were deeply alive, deeply engaged with life. The pressure for constant happiness robs us of these transformative experiences. When we are always trying to avoid discomfort, we miss the opportunities for growth it offers. When we are always trying to maintain a specific emotional state, we lose the richness and complexity of the human experience. And there is something even deeper going on here. The pressure for constant happiness is, ultimately, a form of control. It is an attempt to control our internal experience, to ensure that we always feel a certain way. But this need for control comes from fear, fear of feeling, fear of being vulnerable, fear of being human. When you can simply be present with any emotion that arises, without trying to change it, without trying to control it, without trying to escape it, something magical happens. You discover that you can survive any feeling. You discover that no emotion is permanent. You discover that your true nature is vaster than any specific emotional state. This discovery is liberating, because it frees you from the constant need to manage your internal states. You no longer need to spend energy trying to be happy all the time. You no longer need to judge yourself for feeling sadness, anger, or fear. You no longer need to perform well-being for others or for yourself. The irony is that when you stop chasing happiness, when you stop resisting discomfort, when you stop trying to control your emotional experience, you often discover a different kind of satisfaction. Not the superficial and fleeting happiness that our culture sells, but a deep satisfaction that comes from being at peace with yourself, regardless of what you are feeling. This satisfaction does not depend on external circumstances. It does not depend on other people. It does not depend on achievements or acquisitions. It arises naturally when you stop fighting against your own nature and begin to fully accept it. But acceptance does not mean being passive. Acceptance does not mean doing nothing to improve your life. Acceptance means recognizing and honoring your current experience, while remaining open to what may emerge. It means acting from a place of authenticity rather than desperation. It means making choices based on what truly matters to you, not on what you think should make you happy. When you act from this place of acceptance, your actions have a different quality. They are more aligned, more effective, more sustainable, because they are not coming from an attempt to escape something you don't want to feel. They come from a place of integrity, wholeness, presence. The pressure for constant happiness keeps us in a state of constant becoming rather than being, always becoming something, always going somewhere, always trying to be different from who we are. But what if you are already enough? What if your current experience, imperfect as it may be, is exactly what you need to grow, to learn, to become more human? The pressure for constant happiness is a prison disguised as freedom. True freedom lies in accepting that you are a complete human being, entitled to the full range of emotional experience. And in that acceptance, in that surrender to the reality of who you are, you can find something far more valuable than happiness. You can find peace, a peace that doesn't depend on always feeling good, but that can coexist with any emotional state. A peace that comes from stopping the fight against yourself and starting to love yourself completely, including all the parts you were taught to reject.